Hi everybody, this is Tor Storley and I am back with another video. So in this second video here in this series, I wanted to take a look at how to work with some JSON data. And I have an ongoing thing with querying Yahoo Finance and retrieving JSON data from the Yahoo Finance API. I thought I'll try to do that in DuckDB and see how it goes. With that said, I struggled quite a bit. It's supposed to be pretty easy, but due to how the data comes from Yahoo Finance, I had to try all kinds of things, and I think I spent a whole day trying to figure this out. I was very frustrated, but I didn't want to give up, and finally I figured it out how I could get that data into my DuckDB database. So in this video, I'll go through what I discovered, and I'll also show you how to generate a function or a macro that you can dynamically use to query Yahoo Finance data and put it into your own DuckDB database. So let's get started. So I'm going to open up my DuckDB CLI environment, which looks like this. And if you saw the previous video, you should be familiar with this. Now I have this open statement from the previous video setup, but I don't think I want to put it into the sales analysis database. I'm going to create another one. So the way you can do that is to say, for example, stocks. Run that and then say show databases. And as you can see, there's a database called stocks now. So that created a new database. Okay, this video is not going to be very long, so don't worry. But I want to show you a couple of things that I struggle big time with. Now, before I do, I need to show you what the JSON looks like. Here you can see what the result will look like. And if you understand JSON, or if you're from Python world or what have you, this is what is called a dictionary object. So in JSON terms, this is like a struct. So you have a struct beginning, a struct after the keyword chart. So chart contains a struct of whatever follows here. And under chart, under that struct, there is a keyword result that contains a list of another dictionary that holds a dictionary of all these fields with the values. So it's a key value pair. So when you look at this whole thing, you can see there is a top level node, chart, result, and then you have all this metadata. And what I'm interested in, this will hold all the information you need in order to query this. For example, the ranges you can pass in to get data. In this case, it was 1 day. There's also a field called timestamp, which is we're going to need. This particular JSON file contains data for 5 days only, from April, I believe. And then there's an indicators that has another dictionary object of key quote that has a list, and another dictionary object right here that has another list. So as you can see, you're getting kind of nested in here. And the ones we're interested in is to drill into these closed volume, high, low, open values, but also into this adjusted close. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to understand the structure. One, this is a struct, this is a list. And like I said before, I struggled with this for about a day. And the reason it was so difficult was because of this list object. So under each of these open, close, and so forth, these guys, there's a list. And if you look at that list, it has more than one value. But when you query this using the JSON in DuckDB, it presents it as a list like this. But how do you get individual values out of that? Well, that was the problem I was facing, because it didn't like me querying using something called an unnest function that's supposed to basically retrieve out each individual value in that list, because it didn't recognize it as a list. And I struggled with it over and over, tried all kinds of variations. In the end, the solution was you simply cast it to a value, a data type that can be unnested. So that's what I ended up doing. So let me show you then. This is the actual JSON. Now, one thing you can do with this JSON stuff is to try to retrieve it. So let's see exactly how you could do that. Well, let me put this up on the screen so you can see it. I'm just going to paste this. Let me copy it first. Copy, paste it. So if you look here, this is part of a function I came up with, but look what it's doing. Get the root element, the $ dot, find the chart, the result, and then notice it's a 0 here inside brackets and timestamp. So what is this? Well, let's look at it one more time here in this context. So if you look here, this whole JSON object, if I can get a hold of it, starts with the word chart. So that's what you see, dot chart here. Then you drill into the next one, which is result. But it only has one list. There's only one result keyword with a list in it. But because this is a list, I can simply refer to it as the first list under the result keyword. So that'd be 0. So now I'm actually inside here. And the one I'm trying to get to is this timestamp down here. So if I can find it, this one. So that's why you see under the list, get the timestamp. So that's what this particular function is doing. So let me show you the continuation then. In DuckDB, you can use a function called JSON extract, and it looks like this. And then you pass in a JSON object. And that JSON object, I'm going to show you in a little bit, but it's basically going to be reading from a file. And then I'm going to drill into this portion of it using this JSON extract. So if I actually do this now, and I'm just going to copy portion of what I did so you can see it. This is my select statement. Notice I'm doing some additional casting here, which was that I told you about the whole day I spent. The reason was, in order for this JSON extract to actually be able to parse out this JSON, you need to have it in the right format. And leave it as a JSON didn't do it for the next portion of it. It works like this, but it won't extract individual values. So if I run this now, you can see this is what I'm getting. And this is what I was struggling with. It comes back like this. Right now it is correct. But when I initially did this, I didn't say as double, like a double array here. I said, you know, do it as whatever, the JSON. So up here, it wouldn't read double. It will read JSON, JSON, JSON. And when I try to unnest this, which is the function you want to use when you want to retrieve individual values from a list and then create a new row for every one of them, it didn't do it. Notice also what I'm doing. I'm using the read JSON keyword, and I'm grabbing it from this file that has a JSON file. It looks much like the one I just showed you in Insomnia. That's the file actually I used. So this is what it produces. When I grab the rest of my stuff now for this file, I use this unnest keyword, which is basically creating a new row for every value in these lists. And each one of these now is a double list, as you can see, or array, if you will, except for the volume. I created an int 64. Another problem was with this. This is what's called a Unix timestamp or epoch, which basically means these are the number of seconds that has happened since, I think it's January 1st, 1970. So that's how many seconds has expired up till now. So what I have to do, therefore, is I have to convert it so I can get a decent date looking like. And I use this to timestamp to do that. And then I unnest each one of these values. And I create it into like a timestamp, as you can see here. So this is the query I use to get the JSON data. So as you can see, I'm using unnest. I refer to this whole bottom query here as the word data, as you can see. Therefore, I can refer to data high, data low, and so forth up here. So when I run this now, notice I'm getting a complete output from it. Now, what you could do is you can use round functions and stuff like that if you don't want all these decimals. But as you can see, it actually parses out each value in this list up here into a individual row. So that is really what I wanted. And as you can see here, it starts at 410 and goes through 416, those 5 days. Okay, so that was the first part. Now, I wanted to take it to the next level. So what I wanted to do was to take this code, and I actually wanted to create a macro or function out of it that I can put into a permanent database. So as you can see here, I'm using create or replace macro. You could type in function here too. It's supposed to be the same thing. I don't know why they call it macro. I wouldn't use macro because when I think of macros, I think of Excel, and it's just a generic word for code in Excel, a VBA code, which is really subroutines or functions anyway. We don't really call it macro, but it comes from the past, I guess. And for me, it's more natural to say functions. But anyways, that's what you can use the word macro. So get Yahoo data. And what I'm doing here is I'm passing in some parameters for the symbol, interval, and range. And I want to return this as a table. So you can do it like this. And then here is the query we just looked at. The other thing that is a little different now is notice the from read JSON down here. The one reference I'm using in that URL is taken from this Python code that I'm using for this class I call Yahoo API. And if you look at this guy, I even have a reference to DuckDB here. But I'm basing it on this URL here. So you have the base URL, this first portion, and then you continue. I'll just use a format string here. And as you can see, this piece of it here is what I'm using in that one. So I simply copy this stuff over and I create a couple of parameters. So that's where that's coming from. And anyways, I'm concatenating this string together so I get a dynamic symbol, and then continuing, getting a dynamic interval, and then continuing, getting a dynamic range. So by doing it this way, I can query for 5 days, 30 days, monthly data, weekly data, whatever. And I call it data down here, and then I end this. So when I run this now I just generated that function. So let's try it out. How do you call this macro in DuckDB? Well, you can use a regular select statement, much like you do in SQL Server. You're selecting from this function, which is a table basically. Therefore, you use it just like query. Select star from this function because it's a table, right? You can see it as table up here. So you can say from this table, and you're passing in these parameters. Let's say if I want to see Apple stock for 1 day, one month worth of data. Now when I run this, it goes against the internet and it comes back from the internet shortly, I hope. Did I hit enter? Let me try it again. Now I hit enter. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty responsive. It came back pretty much right away. So this is Apple 1 month worth of data. What if I want to say, let's try a different one. Let's try Microsoft, MSFT, I think it is, 3 months. Let's try that. Hit enter, and sure enough, it came back, as you can see. And this is today's date, 8/14, as you can see. And it's very fast. So, yeah. So you can use this macro to actually query your own Yahoo Finance data. And by the way, this timestamp here, when you use the to timestamp, there's all kinds of time conversions you can do in the documentation. You can go and look there. But this will also include the time zone, as you can see. So Chicago time is 5 hours behind Greenwich Middle Time, I think it is. So that's why you see this -0.5 in the end of this. Okay, very good. So that's what I had for you today. And I hope you liked this video. And if you did, give me a like and consider subscribing to my channel. That would be very nice. Thank you so much. Have a great day or night wherever you happen to be.